Hey everybody, what's good? It's your host and I am Professor Khalil Amani. We're back. Part 3? Part 3. We're talking paganism and the pagans. Yes we are. Yes we are. I say we're talking paganism and the pagans. But let me first say, if this is your first time watching this series on paganism, there are two other parts you might want to check out. Number 1. Number 2, if you think I'm here to bash the pagans and paganism, this is not that. Big up to the pagans, big up to paganism. Now, if it's your first time, you must be going, God damn, I never heard nobody speak glowing and positive of the pagans and paganism. I know you probably haven't. Because I'm not like any of these Bible teachers that act like the Bible is the be-all, end-all, that act like the Bible is the beginning of religious and spiritual conversation. I ain't him. The Bible's a Johnny-come-lately book in the evolutionary understanding of the divinity. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so if this is your first time hearing any of this positive and pro-pagan conversation, I say do yourself a favor. Go back to the beginning and watch parts 1 and parts 2 and get a clue. We are not here to bash the pagans. As I've explained on parts 1 and 2, if it were not for the pagans, we would not have Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. For all 3 great Western religions, they are the children of paganism. Did you hear what I said? I said all 3 great Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they are nothing but the children of paganism. Paganism precedes, comes before them. There is not an original ideal in Judaism, Christianity, or Islam that we can't find amongst the pagans. Well, who are the pagans? According to the dictionary, pagans are anybody who's not a Jew, a Christian, or a Muslim. Did you know that? Did you know that? Do you need to see that? Okay, fuck it. Let's get right into it. Let's define paganism. Let's define paganism. We'll just go to a, American Heritage Dictionary. Let's define paganism so we have a working definition of who we are talking about when we call people pagans. I tell you, a pagan is anyone who is not either part of the Jewish Bible commentary, the Christian or Bible commentary, or the Islamic or Muslim Quranic conversation and commentary. So let's just go look it up. So we'll have a working definition. So when I say pagan, you will know. We're going to read from the American Heritage Dictionary on pagan. On pagan. Let's go. Pagan. Here it is right here. Pagan. A person who is not a Christian, Muslim, or Jew. Also known as a heathen. Got it? Second definition is one who has no religion. See? But now we know a pagan is anybody, any person who is not either Christian, Muslim, or Jew. And the word pagan is synonymous with the word heathen. So you can call them pagans or you can call them heathens. Let's go look up the word heathen real quick before we get into our lesson today. This is going to be a fun one today. Heathen. Heathen. One who belongs to a tribe or nation that does not acknowledge the God of Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. Okay, you got it? Same definition. Same definition. And so, be right back. I dropped something and I dropped my light fell. I've been doing that lately for some reason. I gotta fix that. Okay. All right. So now you know. Now you know what a pagan is. Now you know what a pagan is. A pagan is anyone who doesn't subscribe to Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. You're a pagan. But I want you to understand that the so-called pagans, they never called themselves pagans. That was a word that Jews, Christians, and Muslims called the people who did not go along with their religious understanding of divinity. And so the pagans would be going back to the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Greeks, the Romans, anybody, those particular people who don't subscribe to the Bible or the Quran. Anybody who doesn't subscribe to the Bible or the Quran is labeled a pagan. Got it? Got it. Go, okay. But here's the hard, cold truth. The pagans came first. The pagans precede the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. And pretty much everything that you can find in Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, you can find that motif or that archetype in the pagan religions. I explained in part 2, in part 1, that the pagans and paganism gave us Abraham. Abraham is the father of many nations. Abraham is the eponymous ancestor of Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Yet Abraham himself, he was a pagan. He comes out of pagan Sumeria. He comes out of a polytheistic, goddess-worshiping nation known as Ur of the Chaldees, which was Sumer. That before Abraham understood about a God named Yahweh or El or Adonai or El Shaddai, before Abraham knew about the great I Am, before Abraham knew about Hashem, before Abraham knew about Yahweh and Yahuwah and Yahweh and Yahweh, before he heard those names, he knew about Inanna. He knew about the pagan goddess Inanna. That's what we do over here. That's what we do over here. We tell the truth. Shame the devil. Stop me when I'm lying. You know all those things people like to say? Stop me when I start lying. Abraham, born and raised into paganism. But a pagan, he becomes the eponymous ancestor and the progenitor of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. How about that for a pagan, huh? Talk about a pedigree. How come the Christians, the Hebrew Israelites, or the Israelites, how come they never want to talk about Abraham's paganistic roots? A child of Sumer from Ur of the Chaldees. Even the Bible tells you where Abraham came from. He was born into paganism. We haven't even got to my lesson yet. I'm just giving you, this is the warm up. We're talking about the Virgin Mary on this one. You know, the Virgin Mary. We're going to talk about that bit of paganism in just a moment. I'm warming up on this Sunday morning. Shout out to the Cleveland Browns, though. They beat the Steelers. I like that. Just because of Sanders. I'm not a fan of Cleveland, but I just like to see, you know, Sanders win because they drafted him so low in the NFL draft. Shout out to that brother. Okay. But the pagans gave us a lot of stuff. The pagans gave us the symbol of the serpent. I talk about this, part 1, part 2. The pagans gave us Christmas and Easter. The pagans even gave us monotheism, Akhenaten. The Egyptian king, he came up with the concept of the one God worship. The pagans gave us a lot of stuff. The pagans gave us the Noah flood story. It can be traced back to the Sumero-Babylonian story in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Utnapishtim, the first Noah. The pagans were the shit. You see, the only reason that people like me, we don't exist hardly on YouTube, because the masses of people that are Bible taught, they have to close their eyes to see. And when I say close their eyes to see, I'm quoting the late great philosopher and theologian and historian and mythologist Gerald Massey. He says the Bible taught and the Quran taught people they have to close their eyes to see. Which means they close their eyes to everything that comes before the Bible, everything that comes before the Quran. They close their eyes. They don't want to deal with the fact that most of what they know, their motifs, their archetypes, their dying and rising gods, and their flood stories, and their creation stories. We can find these stories in earlier religious writings amongst the Sumerians and the Babylonians and other folks, so-called pagans. That's right. That's my intro. I think I'm warmed up now. And so on this part 3, in this festive season of Christmas, shout out to pagans, shout out to paganism, and shout out to Christmas. Yes, we understand that all those holidays are pagan. But shout out to the pagans for being so goddamn influential. For we are all pagans at our core. Every time we say, I have to go to, when the Muslim says, I have to go to Jummah prayer on Friday, when he said the word Friday, he just invoked paganism. When the Israelite says, I gotta start my Sabbath starts on sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, they just invoked paganism by using the words Friday and Saturday. That's all from the lexicon and the verbiage of the pagans. When a Christian says, I got to go to church on Sunday morning, he just invoked the words and verbiage of the pagans, Sunday. You can't escape paganism as much as you want, as much as you think. No matter how evolved you think you are. No matter how much you think that the pagans are satanic, spoiled milk. No matter how much you think the pagans are evil, they all up in your medulla oblongata and your cerebellum and your cerebrum and your cerebral cortex and your frontal lobe. You can't work without talking about paganism. You got to find a different way to say Friday. You better start saying, the sixth day of the week. The sixth day of the week. And don't mention the word Friday because you're paying homage to the pagans. They created the days of the week. Oh, the pagans, what a wonderful people they were. Yes, they were. Now, in this episode, I want to talk about Sister Mary. Sister Mary, the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus, and explain the paganism behind her virgin birth. The Christian created the archetypal Virgin Mary based on other earlier virgins who gave birth. Facts upon facts. Facts upon facts. Other virgins that gave birth. I got so much, I'm just trying to think, where do I want to go first? Where do I want to go first? I'm missing a piece of paper. Let's see here. Where do I want to go first? Talking about the Virgin Mary. Yeah, the Virgin Mary. It must be over here. It must be. I wrote something down on a piece of paper. Oh, here it is. Oh, here it is. Indeed and in fact, when we hear of the miraculous birth of Jesus through the Virgin Mary, we want to believe that it is a one of a kind, a first of its kind. An original archetype, but it's not. All you have to do is read world religion, world mythology, and you will come to understand that the virgin birth of Jesus is an old archetype from paganism. That's right. The savior or the god Krishna. You ever heard of Krishna? You can read about Krishna in books like the Bhagavad Gita. This is the Bible of India. The people in India, the Indians, the people in India. They don't read the Bible. They read the Bhagavad Gita. I know most of you never heard about the Bhagavad Gita because you are in a Christian nation and all you know is the Bible. The King James Bible, to be more specific. But if you go to India, you will find that they read a book called the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, the main guy, Krishna, he is the equivalent of the Christian Jesus. And guess what? He was born before Jesus and he was born of a virgin. Paganism that precedes the Bible. Just want to point that out. There were many people that came before Jesus that had sayings. You've heard what Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's not an original phrase from Jesus. Not at all. Mithra, Buddha, and Zoroaster all said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Before Jesus said it, I said Mithra. If you don't know who Mithra is, go research Mithra. Buddha, I know y'all heard of Buddha. And some of you might have heard of Zoroaster and the Zoroastrians, who are the precursors of Christianity. All three of those great religious leaders in history, Mithra, Buddha, and Zoroaster, They all were pagans, but they all would say things like, I am the way, the truth, and the life, before Jesus said it. But I want to talk about this virgin, the ideal that the virgin birth was something new, something shocking, something never happened in human history. Well, the reality of the fact of the matter is, you heard how I said that? The reality of the fact of the matter is, goddamn, that's a lot of word salad, but I'm getting somewhere. The reality of the fact of the matter is, I said the reality of the fact of the matter is, word salad, that before the virgin birth, before the Virgin Mary, before the virgin birth of Jesus Christ, there were other verses. I said Krishna. How about Horus in Egypt? He is said to have gotten pregnant, gotten conceived from the Virgin Isis. Facts upon facts. But I want to talk about this here. This fascinating woman known as the Virgin Mary. So let's get to right to our reading. Let's get a working definition, a working look at who the Virgin Mary was, okay? And since Catholicism, the Catholics, since they are the first real Christian religion that became a world religion amongst the Christian faiths, some would say that Catholicism, the Catholic Church, is the mother church of the world. The very word Catholic, it means universal. From the Catholics come every other branch of Christianity. The Protestants, the Methodists, the Episcopalians, the Baptists, the Holiness, the Seventh-day Adventists, hell, the Mormons. You name the type of Christianity, you name the sect or the denomination of Christianity, their mother is the Catholic Church. They were the first big bona fide world religion for the Christians. And everybody else is a Johnny-come-lately. Everybody else is a bastard child. Everybody else is a spin-off. Is a spin-off from the Catholic Church. So let's start with the Catholic Church and how they define the Virgin Mary. Shall we? Of course we shall. And for that, we are going to read from the Modern Catholic Dictionary. See, I have the books on deck. My library is vast. So let's go. Let's go. Let's get a working definition of the Virgin Mary. Reading from the Modern Catholic Dictionary, okay? We gotta know. What is that? That's something else. I'm gonna go here first. Excuse me. Y'all know I gotta turn pages. That's not it. Okay, here it is right here. The working definition. So we go to an entry in there called Mary's virginity. The belief that the mother of Jesus was always a virgin. We're going to talk about that. Always a virgin. The biblical basis was traceable to the prophecy of Isaiah, which the first evangelist applies to Mary. Okay, and goes on. From the beginning, Christians understood the passage to refer to the Messiah since the sign had been fulfilled. All the fathers, Christian church fathers, affirmed Christ's virginal concept of Mary. Let me go. There's another one I want to read before I get to that. Hold on, people. Hold on a minute. Let me. Okay, here we go. This is part of what I knew I was in the wrong. I was in the right place, but not quite the right place. Okay, turn to the V's for virgin. Here it is. Virginity of Mary. This is what the Catholics taught about the Virgin Mary. The revealed dogma that the mother of Jesus conceived without carnal intercourse, without fucking, gave birth to Christ without injury to her virginity. Wow. Gave birth to Christ without injury to her virginity and remained a virgin all her life. The church's faith in Mary's virginal conception of Christ is expressed in all the creeds. Mary's virginal conception was already foretold in the Old Testament by Isaiah in the famous Emmanuel prophecy, Isaiah 7:14. So that's that. Now let's go back, and we're talking about. All right. Christian tradition went a step further. Not only did Mary conceive without carnal intercourse, without fucking, but her physical virginity was also not violated in giving birth to Christ. When the monk Jovinian began to teach that a virgin shall conceive, but a virgin did not bring forth, he was promptly condemned by the Synod at Milan in 390 AD or CE. Her, meaning the Virgin Mary, her integrity during the birth of Jesus is included in the title Perpetual Virgin, given to Mary by the Fifth General Council held at Constantinople in 553 AD or CD. See, it goes on. Mary, the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus, she remained a virgin after Christ was born. Denied in the early church by Tertullian and Jovinian, the doctrine of virginity postpartum, after birth, was strenuously defended by the Orthodox Fathers and crystallized in the term Ioparthenos ever virgin, coined by the Fifth Ecumenical Council, Second of Constantinople. From the 4th century on, such formulas as that of St. Augustine became common. A virgin conceived, a virgin gave birth, a virgin remained. All right, we got it? Okay, we got a kind of a good working definition. And as you see from the reading, that there was quite some controversy in dealing with her birth. Some people were trying to teach that after the Virgin Mary gave birth to Jesus, she was no longer a virgin, but the Catholic Church came along and said, no. She's a virgin, even though she gave birth. Her hymen, her cherry was not disturbed. Her cherry was never popped. And so people like Constantine would say a virgin gave birth. A virgin conceived. A virgin gave birth. A virgin remained. Talk about myth making at its finest. How does a 6, 7, 8, 9 pound baby come from between the legs of a woman and she's still a virgin after she popped that child out? It's not humanly possible. But we're talking about Christian myth making based on paganism. This ideal that the Virgin Mary remained a virgin that she even conceived a child as a virgin, that is a product of paganism. Now let me correct, while it's on my mind, let me correct something that a lot of people absolutely get wrong. They absolutely misuse. They absolutely mismanage. They don't know what the term means. And that is immaculate conception. It's a very common phrase. We've even used it in the NFL football, the immaculate reception. They say it because of something that happened in a football game. But this phrase, immaculate conception, ask the average person, Christian or not, who has heard the phrase immaculate conception, ask them to define it, and 9 out of 10 people will get it wrong. They know it. I've heard people use the phrase immaculate conception in conversation, totally misuse it, totally don't know what the phrase meant, totally don't know who he was talking about. Let me correct y'all and put you on game, huh? The phrase immaculate conception, if you've heard of it, the average person, when they hear the phrase immaculate conception, they would say it refers to the birth of Jesus. Let that USA. I said the average person, if they use the phrase immaculate conception, they would use it incorrectly, and they would use it to mean that it was the miraculous birth of Jesus. You're wrong, but I'm going to let you think on it for a moment. What do you think the immaculate conception is? You've heard it, but have you ever read what the immaculate conception was? Or are you like a parakeet? A parrot? Are you like a pollywinner cracker? Pollywinner cracker! I'm just aping and copying and upchucking and regurgitating and vomiting popular jargon. I never looked it up. I think the immaculate conception means the birth of Jesus. The miraculous birth of Jesus. That he was born of a virgin. That's not what the immaculate conception is. That's why I'm a teacher and you're a student. The immaculate conception is not the miraculous birth of Jesus. The immaculate conception, let me say it again. Rewind. I said the immaculate conception is not the birth of Jesus. The immaculate conception is the birth of the Virgin Mary herself. Did you know that? Think about how many times you've heard the phrase immaculate conception used and you thought it was talking about the miraculous birth of Jesus. It's not. The immaculate conception has to do with the birth of Jesus' mother. I know. I never heard that, Khalil. Show it to me. I don't believe you. I know. First of all, understand that, again, it was the Catholic Church that created the phrase immaculate conception. So as a Christian, whether you are a Baptist, a Methodist, Episcopalian, a Southern Baptist, a Church of God in Christ, Kojic, a Holiness, a Seventh-day Adventist, a Mormon, a Jehovah's Witness, whatever you are, if you believe in the Immaculate Conception, you believe in a precept of the Catholic Church, and the precept that the Catholic Church took from paganism. Gotcha again. Now let me go and show you in the Modern Catholic Dictionary what the Immaculate Conception was and who was it talking about. You think he was talking about the birth of Jesus? No, it was talking about the birth of Jesus' mama, the Virgin Mary. Let's go. That's why we teach over here. We correct the bullshit that a lot of you all just take for granted. Again, we are reading from the Modern Catholic Dictionary. And they have an entry called Immaculate Conception. Let's see what it says. Immaculate Conception. Title of the Blessed Virgin as sinless from her first moment of existence. Where in the hell do you see Jesus? You see? The Immaculate Conception is a title of the Blessed Virgin Mary as sinless from her first moment of existence. In the words of Pope Pius IX's solemn definition made in 1854, the most holy Virgin Mary, see, Immaculate Conception, the most holy Virgin Mary was, in the first moment of her conception, by a unique gift of grace and privilege of Almighty God, in the view of the merits of Jesus Christ, the Redeemer of mankind, she, the Virgin Mary, was preserved free from all stain of original sin. This means that since the first moment of her, the Virgin Mary, her human existence, the mother of Jesus, the Virgin Mary, was preserved from the common defect of estrangement from God, which humanity in general inherits through the sin of Adam. Her, the Virgin Mary, her freedom from sin was an unmerited gift of God of special grace and an exception to the law or privilege which no other created person has received. You got it? Go ahead and like this video if you just learned something you never heard. If you 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old and all of your life you thought that the Immaculate Conception was the birth of Jesus, and now you know it was not the birth of Jesus, the Immaculate Conception was the birth of Jesus' mama. The Immaculate Conception was the birth of the Virgin Mary. If you didn't know that, at whatever age you are, that deserves a goddamn thumb up the video. I don't really care if you do or you don't. But God, what a revelation. All your life you thought that when you heard the phrase Immaculate Conception, you thought that they were talking about the miraculous birth of Jesus. No, they weren't. They were talking about the Virgin Mary. And that when she was born, that God created even her for the purpose of bringing forth his son into the world. This is a part of the mythology that you get from paganism. And so the Immaculate Conception says that the Virgin Mary, when she was born as a chosen vessel. She was born explicitly to be the womb to carry the Son of God. And that her womb, her body, everybody else, according to the Catholic Church, according to Christianity in general, you've heard it, we are all born into sin. We are all born into sin because of Adam. That's what the book says. Because of Adam, we all born brand new babies, soon as they come out the womb, you go, you little sinner, you. You little 1 minute old sinner, you. That's what our religion, Christianity, teaches us. A baby who knows nothing. A baby without cognition yet. A baby whose cerebral cortex is not even functioning yet. A baby who has no cognitive abilities or cognitive skills. 1 minute out the pussy. We say that baby is born a sinner. Goddamn. What a great religion Christianity is. A pure and spotless newborn baby is a sinner from the time it leaves the womb. That's what Christianity teaches, and that's what Catholicism teaches. But when it comes to the Virgin Mary, according to the Catholics, God has put aside the concept of original sin. That the Virgin Mary is the only baby in the history of babies born among humans that was not a sinner. You didn't know that either, did you? You didn't know that either, did you? That's what the Immaculate Conception is. Of the trillions and trillions of people that have been born since Adam, every one of those mofos is born a sinner. But we are told through the Catholic Church that God pressed pause on babies coming into the world as sinners. And this particular baby that would bear God's son, he pressed pause and said, this particular baby is immaculate. This particular child, Mary, the Virgin Mary, this particular child is freed up from the sin of Adam and Eve. This child is absolutely perfect because this child will bear my son. So I'm going to pause my theology on original sin. This is what the Catholic Church teaches. That God paused his original sin concept for one person. The only person in the history of humanity that was born without sin. The Virgin Mary. And that, my friends, is what the Immaculate Conception is. Go and teach it. Go and correct people. Let them know that the Immaculate Conception had nothing to do with the miraculous birth of Jesus. It had to do with the miraculous and untainted and untouched vagina of Mary herself, the mother of Jesus. But going beyond this Immaculate Conception and this virgin birth, understand that that comes from paganism. Virgin births, we find them going way back, way before Jesus and Mary and all that stuff. Virgin births are nothing. But let me tell you what they did to Mary. The mythology of Christianity and the mythology of the Catholic Church, they made the Virgin Mary, after her Immaculate Conception, they made her the mother of God. You can hear any Catholic in the world go, Hail Mary, full of grace, Mother of God. If Mary is the mother of God, maybe God ain't God. If Mary is the mother of God, then God was created. We'll put that aside. But following paganism, following the paganism that goes back some 25,000 years, before the male god was even thought of. When there was nothing but goddesses walking around the earth being talked about. Tiamat, Inanna, Isis, all these female deities. You know what they called these female deities amongst the Canaanites? Asherah or Asheroth. In Babylon, they called the deity Ishtar, a female. In Sumer, they called the deity a female, Inanna. In Egypt, they called her Isis or Osset. But you know what they had all in common? Do you know what Sumer, Babylon, Egypt, and Canaan had in common when talking about goddess? Sumer, Inanna. Babylon, Ishtar. Egypt, Isis. Canaan, Asherah, goddesses. But do you know what they had in common? They had a title that was in common. You know what their title was? Their title was the Queen of Heaven. Google it. Chat GPT it. Yahoo it. Wikipedia it. But these four goddesses and other goddesses, they held the title Queen of Heaven. And the Bible even gives us clues by mentioning this phrase, this title, Queen of Heaven, Jeremiah chapter 7 and Jeremiah chapter 44. You will read about the Israelites, the Jews, and the Hebrews worshiping the Canaanite deity, the Canaanite goddess, known as Asherah, also known as the Queen of Heaven. Well, what does that have to do with the Virgin Mary? Did you know that Christianity via the Catholic Church would come along and they would adopt the Sumerian, the Babylonian, the Egyptian, and the Canaanite title, Queen of Heaven? They would adopt it and give it to the Virgin Mary. We're talking about paganism. And how paganism is all up in Christianity's booty hole. That's right. Let me show you too. I ain't just lecturing. I'm giving you some shit. The Queen of Heaven. Let's go with... let's go with... I got lots of stuff up here. Let's go with a little book like this here. It's called... It's not even a book. It's a pamphlet. We'll start with the easy stuff. It's called Our Pagan Christmas. No. Let's not start there. Let's start with the Bible. Let's start with the Bible, shall we? Yes, we should. Let me show you that the Jews and the Hebrews and the Israelites were well aware of the Canaanite goddess Asherah and her great title, Queen of Heaven. Let me show you that in the Bible, lest you had never seen it. Let's do that. Let's go to Jeremiah. Let's go to Jeremiah. Let's start there. Let's do it right. Jeremiah, the 7th chapter. Jeremiah, the 7th chapter. Here it is. Here it is. Seest thou not what they do in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? The children gather wood. We're talking about the Israelites. The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes to the Queen of heaven. You see it right there? The queen of heaven is the Canaanite deity goddess known as Asherah. The queen of heaven is a pagan deity, a pagan goddess. And here you got the children of Israel, the Israelites, specifically the children of Judah, worshiping the queen of heaven. Children gathering wood, fathers making fire, women making dough to make cakes for the queen of heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other gods like Baal, that they may provoke me, Yahweh, to anger. You see? Now, Jeremiah 44, we get the same story. I want you to see the queen of heaven. See? It starts right here. As for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Lord, we will not hearken, we will not listen unto you, God. Fuck you, God. But we, the Israelites, the Jews, the Hebrews, we will certainly do whatever thing goeth forth out of our own mouths. Fuck your prophets and fuck you, God. We're going to do what comes out of our own mouth. To burn incense unto the queen of heaven. We are going to burn incense unto the Canaanite goddess Asherah. We are going to burn incense unto the heathen and the pagan goddess, the queen of heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers and our kings and our princes in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then we had plenty of victuals, food, and were well and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense to the queen of heaven and to pour out drink offerings unto her. See, the queen of heaven is mentioned here. And when we burn incense to the queen of heaven is mentioned 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and in chapter 7. Got it, okay. That's for y'all who be talking about, I ain't never saw a queen of heaven in the Bible. Now, since I said who she was, the next question you might want to ask is, well, how do we know who she is? Who is the queen of heaven? You know it ain't Yahweh. You know it ain't Jehovah, because we don't call God no queen. We don't call Jehovah no queen. We don't call Yahweh no queen. We don't call Yahweh no queen. We don't call Yahweh no queen. We don't call Yahuwah no queen. And we don't call Hashem and Adonai and Elohim by a feminine female pronoun queen. So you know it ain't talking about the God of the Bible. The queen of heaven is not the Bible's God. So now we're just going to go over and we're going to look. All you got to do is Google this stuff. But I got to do it for you, I know. So now we're going to look at, let's define the queen of heaven. Let's define the queen of heaven. From the Urban's Bible Dictionary. Do I have it already? I don't think I even pulled that up. But let's find it. Let's go to Q. O-P-Q E-Q-R-S, we're back, Q. Let's see if we can find an entry for the queen of heaven. Ah, there we go, the queen of heaven. And so when the Bible talks about the queen of heaven in Jeremiah 7 and Jeremiah 44, the queen of heaven is a fertility god, a fertility deity. Deity means God. A fertility, that means a sex. Someone that believes in procreation. A fucking and sucking God. A fertility deity worshipped by people of Judah in obedience to the commandments of God. And there is a scripture we just read, Jeremiah 7 and Jeremiah 44. Women in particular seem to have been involved in veneration of the queen of heaven, offering cakes and libations, alcohol, and burning incense. But men and children participated as well. We read that because the children, they gathered the wood, Jeremiah chapter 7. And the men, they started the fires for the ovens. Okay? See, the queen of heaven can be traced to a number of ancient Near Eastern female deities. I just told you that the Queen of Heaven is Inanna in Sumer. The Queen of Heaven is Ishtar in Babylon. The Queen of Heaven is Isis in Egypt. And the Queen of Heaven is Asherah amongst the Canaanites and others. The Queen of Heaven can be related to a number. Many people were being called the Queen of Heaven. A number of ancient Near Eastern female gods or deities. See? But the clearest connection is to the Assyrian Ishtar. That's Babylon. See? There it is right there. Asherah. Asherah is the goddess of the Canaanites. Got it? That's all I want to show you. Asherah. 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 Okay, now you know. Now you know when you read Genesis chapter 7 and Genesis chapter 44 and you read about the Queen of Heaven. You know that the Queen of Heaven is known by several ancient Near Eastern cultures and society. I gave you 4. I said the Queen of Heaven was known as Inanna in Sumer. The Queen of Heaven was known as Ishtar in Babylon. The Queen of Heaven was known as Isis in Egypt. And the Queen of Heaven was known as Asherah amongst the Canaanites. It was a popular title. Long before the Virgin Mary ever came. Long before Jesus. We're talking about paganistic societies and paganistic religions. Now that we know who the Queen of Heaven is from the dictionary, now that we have read the Queen of Heaven, how do we tie this to the Virgin Mary? Did you know that that same Queen of Heaven that goes back to the ancient Sumerians, the ancient Babylonians, the ancient Egyptians, and the ancient Canaanites, that same Queen of Heaven, the Christians would come along and borrow heavily from paganism. And they would take that title, Queen of Heaven, that belonged to Inanna, Ishtar, Isis, and Asherah, and other female deities. And they would give that title, Queen of Heaven, to Jesus' mammy, Jesus' Ima, Jesus' mother, the Immaculate Conception one, the Virgin Mary. Now I know you want proof. We're talking about paganism, how paganism is all up in your ass, all you Bible believers. So let's start now. Let's start with the little pamphlet. We're going to start with a little, it's not a book, it's a pamphlet I found somewhere, but it's called Our Pagan Christmas. It's by a dude named R.J. Condon. Our Pagan Christmas. Let's start there, shall we? We're talking about Mary taking on the title of Queen of Heaven. Page 10. This book really has a nice, it's a little short, compact pamphlet. Not a lot of nice things it says. But what we want to get down to is this Virgin Mary, where it says, Mary was both a virgin and a mother. How? Impossible in nature, but a familiar concept in pagan mythology. See? The ideal that the Virgin Mary was a virgin and gave birth to a child, it is a common concept in pagan mythology. That's where they get it from. It wasn't an original New Testament concept. Races as far apart as the Mexicans, the Chinese, the Indians, the Etruscans, and the Teutons, and the Scandinavians all knew the Virgin Mother Goddess. Goddamn. There can be little doubt that the Virgin Mary has been modeled directly upon the Egyptian Isis. God damn. The Virgin Mary is modeled after an African goddess named Isis. are set. For the two, the Virgin Mary and the goddess Isis, the two are virtually indistinguishable. The qualities which so endear Mary to the Roman Catholics are the ones which made Isis so popular in Egypt. Both goddesses, now they're calling Mary, the Virgin Mary, they're calling her a goddess. Both goddesses, gentle mothers that could intercede with the all-powerful Creator and stern judgment far more effectively than their sons, Horus and Jesus. And accordingly, both have been styled intercessor. Mary, as Mother of God, is only a reflection of Isis as Neter Mut. Other titles of Isis include Our Lady, Queen of Heaven, there it goes, Star of the Sea, Savior of Souls, and Immaculate Virgin. Where do we get that from? Now you know where the term Immaculate Conception comes from. It comes from Egypt and the Virgin Isis, all appropriated by her Christian counterpart, the Virgin Mary. Got it? Like Isis before her, Mary is portrayed standing on a crescent moon, blah, 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 blah. Okay, go ahead. Here it goes right here. In the 4th century Alexandrian temples of Isis and the Church of Mary stood side by side. So now we see that the Queen of Heaven and the Immaculate Mother or Immaculate Virgin, these are Egyptian concepts that were bequeathed and bestowed on Mary being the Mother of God. She becomes the Queen of Heaven. But the original the original motifs and models of the Queen of Heaven were Inanna in Sumer, were Ishtar in Babylon, were Isis in Egypt, and were Asherah in Canaan. They all had the title Queen of Heaven thousands of years before Mary would take on the title as the Mother of God, and before Mary became called an Immaculate Virgin. Isis was called an Immaculate Virgin. But this is the doing of the Roman Catholics. Okay, let's go on. Let's move on. Because time is a-running. Let's go to a book called Mystery Babylon Religion. Mystery Babylon. Let's read what they say about this whole Queen of Heaven thing. Page 18. I like you to see this stuff. I didn't talk a lot, but I like you to read what folks are saying. Here it is right here. Another title that has been borrowed from paganism and applied to Mary is Queen of Heaven. See? This title, it comes from paganism. It comes from Sumer. It comes from Babylon. It comes from Egypt. It comes from Canaan. And you read it in the Bible. But now, this paganistic title is now being applied to the Virgin Mary. She is now called the Queen of Heaven. But Mary, the mother of Jesus, is not the Queen of Heaven. For the Queen of Heaven was a title of the pagan mother goddess that was worshipped centuries before Mary was ever born. Yes, way back in the days of Jeremiah. We just read that in the Bible. The people, the Jews, the Hebrews, the Israelites, they were worshiping the Queen of Heaven and practicing rites that were sacred to her. As we read in Jeremiah 7, see? We already read that. As we have seen, the name of the mother goddess in Egypt is Isis, or was Isis, and her son's name was Horus. No, now, one of the titles by which Isis was known was the Mother of God. Who is called the Mother of God now? The Virgin Mary is now called the Mother of God. Later, this same title was applied to the Virgin Mary by the theologians of Alexandria. Goddamn. Stop me when I start lying. That's two sources. I'm showing you how this title, we all know who the Queen of Heaven is because we went over it in the dictionary. And now we are seeing that Christians are borrowing that pagan title and giving it to Mary Magdalene. Let's read another book. Let's read on. Let's read one of my great books. I love this book. It's called Mary Magdalene. We're talking about the Virgin Mary, but let's go into this book here about Mary Magdalene by Susan Haskins. This is what we do, people. Mary Magdalene. Look what she says. Starting with Mary Magdalene, Myth and Metaphor. Page 42. We'll start there. Page 42. What's it say? What's it say? It was later commentary only which gave Mary the titles Queen of Heaven. See? Mary was given the title Queen of Heaven, a title already given in the pre-Christian goddess Ishtar of Babylon, and already given in Sumer, Inanna, and already given in Egypt with Isis, and already given in Canaan with Asherah. See? There it is. So she says it right here. She lets you know that the title given to the Virgin Mary, Queen of Heaven, it was a title already given to the pre-Christian goddess Ishtar. Now let's go on. Let's go on. 137. I guess you must know that I read these books for me to be doing this stuff. Oh, speaking about the Immaculate Conception, here it is again. The doctrine of the Immaculate Conception, which referred to the Virgin's conception in the womb of her mother Anne. Got it? I know you thought that the Immaculate Conception had to do with the birth of Jesus, the miraculous virgin birth of Jesus, but it doesn't. The Immaculate Conception, it refers to the Virgin Mary's conception in the womb of her mother Anne. And not, see, here it is right here. Here it is right here, as I just said. And not as it is so often believed, particularly by non-Catholics, to Christ's own conception. Goddamn. I forgot. I didn't even have, I read that years and years ago, but there it is. See? Just like I said, most people tend to think, especially non-Catholics, you want to say that the Immaculate Conception was the miraculous birth of Jesus. But here it is right here. It does not, see, the Immaculate Conception, which refers to the Virgin's conception in the womb of her mother Anne, and not, as is so often believed, particularly by non-Christians, to Christ's own conception. You got it wrong. You got it wrong. You got it wrong. Now let's go on back to the Queen of Heaven. Mary was in body, the soul assumed to be in heavenly glory, and was popular theme in the Middle Ages, and for many centuries celebrated as a church festival before becoming an article of faith in 1950. The ultimate accolade, her apotheosis. What is an apotheosis? An apotheosis, let's not run by words. Apotheosis, it means the elevation of someone or something to divine status. It means to deify, to make a god of them. And so in the Virgin Mary's apotheosis, within the celestial hierarchy, her coronation by her son as what? Queen of heaven. That's from the Babylonians and the Sumerians and the Egyptians and the Canaanites. See, Mary, Jesus' mama, she becomes the Queen of heaven. Also a popular medieval image in which Mary humbly and gracefully inclines her head to receive her final triumph was officially proclaimed by Pope Pius XII in 1954. Got it? Let's go on. That's page 138. I gotta show you, I gotta teach you, man. Mary's hypothesis, meaning Mary's elevation to being a god. Mary's hypothesis, Mary's elevation to divine status. In the celestial hierarchy, her final triumph as Queen of Heaven effectively removed her from the sphere of ordinary women. Got it? I'm trying to learn you something. It's all about the pagans, y'all. The pagans come up with the greatest titles. I said the pagans come up with the greatest titles. It was the pagans and their title, Queen of Heaven, that the Christians, the Catholics, would borrow and bestow upon the mother of Jesus. Y'all talk about you don't do paganism. Shame on you. Let me show you something else. This is heavy duty stuff right here. Y'all ever heard of these books here? It's a 2-volume tome, a 2-volume book. It's called Anacalypsis. 1,000 pages. I don't know. I know, that's a lot. Anacalypsis. This is mythology and religious and historical reading on some other. Most of y'all never heard of Anacalypsis, but I'm here to share something about Anacalypsis as it relates to the Virgin Mary. Pope Leo. Yes, Pope Leo. Anacalypsis, an attempt to draw aside the veil of the Saitic Isis, or an inquiry into the origin of the languages, nations, and religions. Goddamn. By Godfrey Higgins. It's a 2-volume set. It's not for the faint of heart. But on page 314, how many pages is this book? This book is 850 some pages. But on page 314, he says something that I want you to know. Here it is. Talks a lot about the Holy Virgin Mary, the identity of the Holy Virgin of the Christians, you know. Blah, 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 blah. It goes on. It's down here. Oh, we got to get to it. All the mysteries of his divine incarnation and all the secrets of his miracles, life, deception. For a more detailed proof of the assertion of Albert, okay, the reader may consult Dupius. Bocart says that Pope Leo X gave the Virgin Mary the title goddess. She becomes the God, the Queen of Heaven. She becomes the Mother of God. It was Pope Leo X that gave the Virgin Mary the title goddess. That's all I want to show you in there, just for that. All of that, those 2 big old volumes, just to show you that. But that's all I needed right now. But if you are serious, if you think you're a serious student and you don't own Anacalypsis, I don't know what to tell you, man. I own the 2 volumes. I'm going through these books. Another pope. Let's see. 366. Another book real quick. Lives of the Popes. Page 366. What does it say? Why did I pull this book out? We'll see. We're talking about, which Pope are we talking about? We're talking about Pope Pius the Ninth, I believe. Pope Pius the Ninth. Here it goes. Pope Pius the Ninth. His personal devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary and his conviction that she was the main spiritual bulwark against atheistic communism led Pope Pius XII, Pope Pius XII to define the dogma of the bodily assumption of Mary, the Virgin Mary, into heaven. See, he did a lot. To declare a Marian year, the year of Mary, in 1954, and to leave open the question not only of her role as mediatrix of all grace, but even as co-redemptress with Jesus Christ. I mean, not co-redemptress. In other words, they are actually trying to make the Virgin Mary a second savior, a co-redeemer, a co-redemptress. The reason it says redemptress, because that's the female pronoun of redemptor. Redemptor is male, redemptress is female. And they, the Catholic Church, are trying to leave open the possibility of calling the Virgin Mary a co-redemptress with Jesus Christ. Damn. I got to wrap this up. But there's something else I want to show you. But I'll show it to you on part 4. We'll just wrap up Mary Magdalene and let you know that people like Gerald Massey, you know what Gerald Massey calls her? Gerald Massey calls the Virgin Mary a whore, a prostitute, a harlot. I'm going to leave you on that cliffhanger. I'm going to leave you on the fact that Gerald Massey calls the Virgin Mary a whore, a prostitute, and a harlot. That's a cliffhanger for you to come back for part 4. I'm going to leave you there. How could a woman who was a virgin be labeled and called a whore, a harlot, or a prostitute? I'm going to leave you on that cliffhanger. And so, what we have learned today is that the Virgin Mary, she becomes Mother of God, she becomes Goddess, and she becomes Queen of Heaven. That the Christians through the Catholic Church have given her the title and the moniker going back to Inanna of Sumer, to Ishtar of Babylon, to Isis of Egypt, and to Asherah of the Canaanites. Yeah. That paganistic title given to the queens of antiquity, given to the queens of pagan religions, has been bestowed and given to the Christians, the mother of Jesus, the Queen of Heaven. I don't care if you're not a Catholic and you go, I don't care, I'm not Catholic. Well, God damn it, the Catholic Church is your mother. The Catholic Church even gave you Sunday worship. We'll talk about that also. If you go to church on Sunday, then you are a sycophant, a brown-noser, an underling of the Roman Catholic Church, even though you say you're not Catholic. Because we know Jesus did not go to church on Sunday. We'll talk about that in part 4. But don't hold yourself. If you don't believe that Mary is the Queen of Heaven, but you take your black ass to church on Sunday, don't think you are better. Because the Catholic Church also gave you Sunday worship. We'll talk about it on part 4. Come back and see me. I love you all for a better world.